Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, emergency management, resilience, well-being, anything related to those topics, and anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If there are any topics you'd like to talk about on the show and you'd like to be a guest, please feel free, reach out to LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there, so I'm really easy to find. Just leave me a message and I'll respond to you and we'll see about getting you on the show. A couple of reminders, fingers crossed with the way things are going. We're going to be talking about this a little later, but I am scheduled to talk at 3 conferences later this year, October 4th to 6th, Continuity Insights in Minneapolis, November 3rd to 4th, BCI World Virtual, and December 1st to 2nd, Continuity and Resilience Today, just down the road for me in Toronto. And you can tell by our different graphic this month, it's time for This Week in Business Continuity with James Green. James, welcome back.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, we have a fancy logo now for our segments, and I want to congratulate you, your 100th YouTube episode. That is quite an accomplishment. Congratulations. I would have brought the balloons if I would have known before our press meeting, but seriously, that's quite an accomplishment.
I only realized it was 100th earlier this morning when I just started to pull out your folder, because you do have your own folder with notes and things like that in it. And I kind of looked up, okay, where are we? When are we recording? When is this airing? And as I noticed the numbers, I went, no, is that right? Oh, he's episode 100. Not bad. So congratulations to you. You're actually a part of the celebration for 100th episodes of Preparing for the Unexpected.
I'm very excited.
And I know this is our 5th This Week in Business Continuity, but I know it's about the 7th or 8th, if not more, times that you've actually been on the show. So, so you're a part of that. So thanks for being a part of that and a part of this 100th milestone.
Absolutely, we always have great conversations.
Yeah, so. And we've got a good outline today too. It'll be interesting to see where we go, what we get to, what there's always something we don't get to, but but we'll see how far we get. Let's jump into something that we missed last week, or last month, I should say, and that was the Interos annual global supply chain report. I know we talked about a few of them, but this one we didn't get to. There were a few things that came out of this one. If I recall correctly, it was on supply chain report, but it was 900 senior IT security and procurement decision makers from April and May earlier this year. And you had a few things you wanted to touch on in this report.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 2 questions I get asked the most these days outside of pandemic are around cybersecurity and around vendor risk supply chain. Like it seems, I don't know, and we talked about this, and we've talked about this for years, that supply chain is becoming a bigger and bigger issue in our world of business continuity. And so one of the things in this report that really jumped out at me over here, it says 83% have had supply chain disruptions due to natural disasters, which means 83% of those 900 respondents had a BC issue that started with a supplier. Mm-hmm. And for me, supply chain management, vendor risk management is honestly messy. When you start looking at your first level vendors, okay, easy. Second level vendors, very difficult. Third, fourth level vendors, impossible. Mm-hmm. Like how do you even, and the study even said that visibility levels drop off sharply below the second tier. But for a lot of companies, you're in manufacturing or you have supply chain, your customers don't care if your supply chain 3 levels up had a BC incident. All they know is you're not now delivering me goods and services. So I know we all talk about cyber these days. We all talk about pandemic these days. supply chain management, vendor risk management is something I've been spending a lot of time on because it's really complicated to look at those secondary and tertiary vendors. I'm like, I don't even know how people truly stay on top of that whole ecosystem. Anything for you that jumped out or your thoughts?
Well, I have some of the same thoughts because when you get to vendor management, and I'll use yourself and myself as an example. You're providing me a service. However, you have certain contracts with some of the other people you work with. You can't divulge that to me, but it's information I want so that I get a comfort level that you are protected on your side, right? That I'm still going to get the service I'm expecting. And there's service level agreements. There's one between you and I, but then it's different between some of these other providers. And depending on where they're located, you could be dealing with an international company, that I know nothing about, and how do I deal with that? Because, well, now all of a sudden I've got to reach out to this company I don't even work with in a different country. They're going to look at me and go, who the heck are you? I don't have to tell you anything, right? So you're right, because you used the word messy, and it is messy, very confusing because a lot of people don't want to give up some of this information, if also to protect themselves, because if I'm talking with someone that provides you a service and you provide me, then I go straight to that one to ask them questions. I may turn around and say, oh, well, if you do the same thing James does, why am I dealing with James?
Exactly.
And then, that puts a whole new different dynamic on things.
Yeah. And think about, we've all run or managed business continuity programs, and we all know exactly where the flaws and weaknesses in our organization's program are. And we've all, when a customer comes to us and says, hey, show me all your plans, all your tests, all your exercise, all your after action reviews. You don't want to do that because it's admitting where your vulnerabilities are. It's hard enough to get information from your immediate vendors. Now imagine trying to get it from your vendors' vendors. Yeah. Well, without that, you really have no idea what again, if I rely on you for service and you're critical to me, but Stone Road is critical to you and I have no idea what they're doing, how do I really know what my BC is? And one of the numbers I saw that jumped out in this report, they said the average supply chain disruption hit $184 million US in revenue. That's a significant financial risk. And I think as we kind of shape our profession of business continuity and think about resilience as well, that supply chain and that vendor risk has really got to be part of it.
Yeah. And I think one of the other challenges we have is, depending on who you're working with, they may be operating from a different playbook than what you're looking at. Let's say in my organization, audit and compliance, I'm trying to meet audit and compliance rules and regulations and standards. And I know your comments on standards. I have the same feelings. But if I am to meet this, you're following a different standard or a different methodology, then does that mean you're a bad vendor? I should consider somebody else? That's wrong. But that kind of thing is going to crop up. Yep. And it's going to make something that looks good seem as though it's bad when it's really not.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point. When you work in financial services, you and your vendor and your vendor's vendors may all follow the same business continuity standards because it's regulatory requirements. Mm-hmm. But in other services, to your point, I may be building my program. I roll up through risk. And your program rolls up through compliance and their program rolls up through audit, all going to have very different standards and methodologies. Yeah. But how do you measure, yeah, that's a robust program? No, that's a weak program. It's going to be, I've been thinking about this a lot more and more because this is messier to me than cyber, because cyber, it seems there's at least 1 or 2 levels. And vendor, there could be 4, 5, 6 levels.
Yeah, and as I say, we could be doing something different and I'm ISO certified, you're not, but that doesn't mean you're not meeting all your requirements, because we're supposed to build programs that meet our specific needs,
Correct.
not the needs of somebody else. Whether that be an audit, a standard, compliance, whatever case may be. We're supposed to build a program, maintain a program, exercise a program based on what our needs are.
Yep.
Sorry. And that we could do all the work in the world, and then all of a sudden a vendor come along and say, no, you don't meet our standards. Like, well, what?
Yeah. And I think, we have different definitions of criticality. So my business, I need to bring services back up within a week, and you need to bring them back up within a day. There's very different, like you said, you're going to build your programs very differently based on what that definition of criticality is.
Yeah. And we could have, you could be supplying me a service, but I could be providing the public your service. The public is going to have a different definition of what they want compared to the agreement you and I have.
Yep.
If I'm waiting, let's say 3 days is acceptable between you and I. If there's a disruption, either way, that's fine. But my client, the public, says no, after 5 minutes, they've had enough and they're on social media complaining. Now what?
Yeah. Think about if you've ever had a debit or credit card declined, not due to insufficient funds, but an error along the transmission. What's your tolerance for that transaction as you're standing there trying to check out at a grocery store or department store? You want that fixed immediately.
Yeah. And that has actually happened. I'm sure it's probably happened to more people than we think, but it's happened to me in a grocery store too.
Yeah.
Declined. And how can that be declined? That's impossible.
I understand. I was in a parking garage a couple of weeks ago. My card got declined for $1.48. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure
I've got enough
cash or credit to cover this transaction.
Yeah. And it's embarrassing when that happens, and depending on the situation. But I think vendor, especially with these some of these new standards and guidelines that are coming through, like the FCA from the Bank of England with all the tolerance levels. Well, now you're going to have to, if you are talking to all these different people, you're going to have this agreement on what some of these tolerance levels are now.
Exactly.
Which could totally change some of the IT configurations you have, your process lists, that we all love from the BIAs and things. It could change all of this stuff. So messy is only a small part of the the piece here, I think.
Absolutely.
Any final comment on that?
No, I would I'd love to hear from the audience if they are doing things in vendor risk management or supply chain risk that are actually effective and really working. I think we need to share within our industry those best practices, because I think we're going to get hit. Management's going to say, oh, there was a BC incident, and it's going to be ours. Yeah. So I'd love to hear what people are doing to really get to that third, fourth level vendor, if anything.
Yeah. And I wouldn't want to see red flags raised when they really don't need to be raised.
Correct.
That things become, what is it? Red herrings. That what's going on here? That we really don't have an issue.
Exactly.
So, that would be really interesting to find out. So let's move to our next topic. And I mentioned at the beginning in my introduction that I'd be speaking at 3 conferences. And one of them, hopefully, you and I will be able to meet face to face. You attended a conference recently. You were presenting at one. How did that experience go?
I did. Last week, I spoke at the Florida RIMS conference in Naples, Florida, as a speaker. There were 600 attendees at a state level conference, which I think shows you the pent up demand for people to leave their house. You had to be vaccinated or wear a mask. And, later on, we can talk about whether people were being honest about that. But it was the first time I'd been in person at a conference since, I had to look it up, it was September of October 2019. And it's a very different experience now. So as you know, when you speak at a conference or when you attend a conference, you get a swag bag, right? So I brought along my swag bag. I have 2 bottles of hand sanitizers with clips for your backpack. I have 2 boxes of alcohol wipes. And then I have 2 spray bottles of hand sanitizers that look like pens. This is one I had not seen before, all branded Liberty Mutual, Sedgwick Insurance, et cetera, et cetera. That was basically my bag was full of disinfectants, wipes, masks. It was a very post-apocalyptic swag bag.
Yeah, I guess gone were the days of the the balls you could squeeze in your hands, stress balls and
correct
different pens and pencils and lanyards and all kinds of different things.
And so, one thing I've found that if we ever go to another conference again, because with the Delta variant and things sliding sideways, I found it socially very awkward in terms of people didn't know how to greet other people. Should I wave, do the fist bump, do the elbow, actually shake your hand? When someone said hello to you, normally you would come right up to them. And now there was, I'm not going to say, 2 meters or 6 feet of social distancing in effect, but everyone was very spaced out. The chairs were very spaced out. It was I think an environment that I hadn't personally figured out, and a lot of people hadn't figured out how to maneuver. How do you deal with being in a pandemic, even vaccinated, and be socially respectful? Where I think prior to this conference, just waving at people or not shaking people's hands would have been considered very rude. And now I wondered if trying to shake someone's hand, or how do I feel like we need to write some decorum and etiquette rules now about here's how we do this now. And it was weird. One last comment to speak, you and I have been on camera for 2 years now. So to actually be with an audience and to see reactions, and there's some things I said that people didn't agree with, and you could see it on their face right away, or one guy was in the back on his phone the whole time, so you knew how he felt, or some people nodding in agreement. I think I've missed a lot of those physical cues that you pick up on when you speak to people not on a screen. In addition to having to wear shoes for 12 hours a day was a strange...
and long pants.
Yeah, well, I've got pants on now, but no shoes. And I couldn't figure out every day. I was like, my feet are not used to, I got to build up the shoes. But let me ask you, so hopefully I get to see you at Continuity Insights in October in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. How are you going to approach the social aspect? Have you thought about that?
Well, I have thought about it because I've been watching what's happening with the Delta variant all across the US and Canada. And it's no secret that our border has been closed for a year and a half, especially for non-essential travel. And attending a conference is not considered essential. Correct. So I'm kind of wondering, am I even going to be allowed to go if I want to? Knowing that there's challenges at the airports with I don't think they're doing it anymore, but some airports were separating vaccinated people from non-vaccinated people, wearing masks. You're seeing things on an airplane where people are getting upset really quick.
Yes.
So I'm not quite sure what to think yet. And let's say everything goes well, fingers crossed, and I get to go to Minneapolis. When I get there, I'm an introvert anyway, for the most part, and I tend to kind of be in the back side of things and watch what's going on rather than be in the middle, unless I'm up on stage, and then I become an extrovert. Like on the show here, I'm an extrovert on the show, but I'm an introvert actually away from all of this. How do I react? Am I being myself, or am I actually acting in a manner for social distancing? And It's like, am I me or am I being told who to be here? And you brought it up too. How do I say hello to people? If let's face it, it's got to be kind of uncomfortable if you're 5, 6 feet away and someone just goes, hi. You're kind of like, are you talking to me? That's got to be a little strange as well. But if you have a room, and I was going to ask you this, if you've got a room of, I'm not saying you spoke to all 600 people, but let's just say it was a room of 600 people, and you're talking, everyone's sitting there with a mask or socially distanced, and you're not. How do you feel doing that? Do you feel out of place? Do you feel as though you're, I should be talking wearing a mask here, but then people won't understand me? So it gets different, difficult to kind of, how am I going to socially interact with all these different people? And at conferences, that's kind of one of the points, to learn from each other. And it's difficult to have a conversation when you can't approach people, at least not the way you used to. So I've been thinking about that for October. Well, what do I do? How do I manage this? Am I even going to be able to go now? Depending on where things go. And, I still want to think positive that no, there won't be a fourth wave, even though that is now starting to hit the headlines, and we're hearing doctors here anyway talk about it, and medical experts. So it's what's going on? How do I look at this in the future? I don't want to make arrangements and then find out that I can't go. And, there's all these, like we talked beforehand, there's all this risk with traveling. If it's in Canada, well, that's different, but crossing the border, what if they all of a sudden decide to implement, well, if you go, enjoy yourself, but when you come back, you're going straight to a hotel and isolating at your own cost. No, I can't do that for 2 weeks.
Correct.
So, I'm really kind of not sure where things are going to go right now, and what to do. But I really do want to go, and I want to be there.
I understand. Yeah. For this conference, it was 3 hours from me. So I was able to drive there. So I didn't have to worry about airplanes, airports. Then we saw there was another fight on an airplane Saturday that I guess was on Twitter today. I didn't have to worry about any of that. You and I talked, like I purposely didn't consider any conferences in Canada for the entire year because I don't want to be stuck in quarantine for 2 weeks before or after.
Yeah.
But I think there was, you and I have spoken on several episodes about burnout and mental health and stress. I found it initially the first day stressful. I have not been around that many people in a year and a half. So to be around people was different. So I found everything very loud, and it was trying to figure out, like, navigate, like you said, socially, respectfully, how to do everything. It was another messy situation. I've actually seen some companies where they're returning to work, they have people wear colored wristbands. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't.
So it's like, if you want people to stay 6 feet away from you, you wear a red wristband. And if you're okay with interaction, you wear a green wristband. That way people can tell from a distance what your preferences and requirements are and respect those boundaries without having to ask. And when I first read about those a couple of weeks ago, I was like, well, that seems kind of strange. And now I totally understand. I wish people would have had a little something on their badge or a wristband, or, come close, don't come close. But I think even if we get past the Delta variant, whenever we get past all of this, reintroducing ourselves to conference society is going to be a very interesting experiment.
I think so, because you just mentioned, the stress levels and how people are feeling. When you bring all these people together that have, for lack of a better way of saying it, kind of isolated really from large crowds for the last year and a half, you bring them all together, how are they going to react to, with themselves? I'm uncomfortable. Usually I'm quite happy. I'm the life of the party. And now all of a sudden, it's too much. I can't deal with all these people. And at conferences, you're talking with vendors and asking questions, or a colleague in the same industry, but on the other side of the country, you get to stand there and go, well, how did you deal with this? I got a boss like that. And, and she's like this and he's like that. And, and you get to just bounce ideas off of each other. But now it's, what do I talk about? What can I talk about? Is there insensitivity now too, by approaching people, and a vendor can't just walk up, hey, let me help you, put their hand on your shoulder. Let me show you this, like some do, and all that's gone, and that can't be good for vendors either, because, let me show you your product, but, stay way over there. It's got to be tough for everyone.
Well, yeah. And as someone who's been in the vendor space for a few years now, the last year doing virtual exhibit halls, nobody showed up, right? Because there's two kinds of people who come to a booth. Typically, as a vendor, you're watching people come in. Maybe three. They know who you are. They want to say hi and catch up. Those are awesome. You have people who are, I'm in the market for a BC software and I need to talk to people. And then there's people who just want swag. And I love those people too, because they're very honest about, like, look, can I have the stress ball? I don't even want to talk to you. And in a virtual space, if they wanted to know more about your software or demo, you would have already talked to them. They're not walking around. So I found a couple of conferences the last year sitting in a virtual booth for an hour, just staring out the window. So I think, people do want to get back to that. But then again, are you comfortable walking through an exhibit hall? And then, people under 12 can't get the vaccine. My children are over 12. So everyone in my immediate and extended family are vaccinated. So that wasn't a consideration for me, but that may be a consideration for other people. Like, hey, am I going to go to a conference? Am I going to interact with people knowing I have people in my house who can't be vaccinated?
Yeah. And being in this conference with all these people, what guarantee do I have that they were all honest and are vaccinated? Yeah. Let's face it, that's an argument that's been going on for months.
Yeah. You had the Lollapalooza music festival in Chicago over the weekend. They had 100,000 people there Sunday, and they said that 90% of the people were vaccinated. I don't agree. Anecdotally,
that's a pill hard to swallow. I really don't.
To your point, I'm going to say there's some liars in that group.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but as I say, I won't know until after August 21st when we'll see what happens with the border, and then I might have to start thinking about alternate ways of presenting or going, or fingers crossed, maybe I can still go, but we'll see.
We'll find out. So that's got 3 weeks, and then we'll find out, I guess.
Yep. On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment. We're talking with James Green this week in business continuity. We'll be right back. I hope you enjoyed that talk with James Green. We talked for so long, that first segment actually became part one of our talk. So check out the links that will appear at the end of this video, and it'll take you to part two. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.